After that, we'll have time for questions and answers, both questions of the speakers as well as for each other. There's a lot of wisdom and experience in the room today with all of you present. So we hope to have a conversation back and forth as much as possible. And that will follow the speakers' presentations. And then we'll wrap up with information on how to stay involved, what to do next, and a chance to give us some feedback on this webinar. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm really excited to have people joining us from different parts of the world to be offering this in 3 languages. And I'm really grateful to everyone who took the time to be here today. My name is Sasha. I work at the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives. We are one of the organizations hosting this event together with the Emergency Committee for Rojava. So to start us off, I will turn it over to Esther. Oh, sorry, to Emery. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you.
Thank you, Sasha, Esther, Michael, Chris, Esteban at the U.S. Federation of Worker Cops, and also my colleague Anya at the ECR for making this workshop happen. We've been planning for this for a while now, and I'm glad to see we're finally realizing it with more than 60 participants. My name is Emre. I'm a steering committee member at the Committee for Rojava, and I'm also a sociologist by training. My research focuses on the cooperative movement in Rojava, North and East Syria. And today I will be giving you a brief historical, geographical, and political background information overview on the Rojava component of our workshop. Sorry if I'm speaking too fast. Sorry to the interpreters. I'll try to make sure I speak slower. I'll share my screen now. I'm hoping that everyone can see the presentation. To make the presentation less boring, I've only included photos and images. So here it goes. For those of our participants less familiar with the geographical context, this is the region that I will be talking about today, and this is the region where 2 of our presenters will be tuning in from. This is the part of the Middle East where Turkey and Turkish and Syrian states meet. This area in yellow that you see has been under the control of the Democratic Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria. And the area here that you see in red have been under the control of the Ba'athist Assad regime. And the areas in green that you see on the map have been, and this blue area to the north, have been under the control of Islamist groups backed by Turkey and Jordan. This has been the geographical situation in the region for the past 14 years. And now to give a bit of a historical context, this geographical division had not existed until 2011. But let me actually rewind a little bit more. This entire region had been under the rule of the Ottoman Empire for 4 centuries until the First World War. After the Ottomans were defeated at the end of the First World War, modern-day Syria became a French mandate and for a little over 2 decades. And in the mid to late 1930s, uh, excuse me, in the mid 1950s, Syria finally became an independent republic, uh, getting rid of the French colonial rule there. And after that, the country was run by the Assad family, initially by Hafez al-Assad, by his son Bashir al-Assad, for almost 50 years. The official policies of the Syrian Arab Republic, as it had been officially named, was Baathization and Arabization. Uh, and this political setup came to an end when the wave of Arab Spring protests reached Syria in 2010, 11. The Arab Spring protests became armed, and a civil war started to break out in the country into late 2010, early 2011, I believe. And the different peoples, the Kurdish, Arabic, Turkmen, as Armenian, Assyrian peoples of North and East Syria came together with the breakout of the civil war, used the power vacuum that was created by the civil war, and declared the establishment of the autonomous administration of North and East Syria. Uh, Now, to give a little more political background information on the autonomous administration and its philosophy of democratic confederalism. This is a photo that I took in the main stadium in Kamışlı during my field research in the summer of 2019. This very stadium was home to a famous popular uprising in 2004, uh, led by Kurdish youth in the region that were clandestinely organizing against the mono-ethnic authoritarian rule of the Assad family, where dozens of people died in clashes after a football game which turned violent. The violence took place between security forces and mostly Kurdish youth protesters. And during all these years, this very stadium that you're seeing, had writings here that said one flag, one country, one nation, one people. This unitarian or assimilationist approach symbolized and written on the stadium. After the withdrawal of Syrian regime forces and the announcement of the autonomous administration, here you see the writings Suriye Demokrat, Democratic Syria, Kurdistan-eke Khwaser, Autonomous Kurdistan, reflecting the ethno-pluralist and decentralized and autonomous values of the ideology at work in Rojava, North and East Syria, over the past 13 years. This ideology is not only a decentralized democracy, direct democracy, but also gender egalitarian, where women have been advancing in all areas of social, political, economic, and militaristic life. Women have been autonomously organizing in all areas of life, establishing gender quotas, co-presidency systems, uh, the unilateral right to veto for and by women's organizations, and increasing their presence and activity in all areas of life. Furthermore, uh, the democratic confederalist philosophy practiced in North and East Syria is uh, ecologist in its aspirations, despite its reliance on oil as the main source of energy in the region. It has put into place practices of banning chemical fertilizers in agriculture, ensuring that ecological standards are met in economic activities, uh, organizing campaigns of uh, protecting and cleaning nature, etc. Uh, Another important component of the revolution in North and East Syria is its class-related policies. Monopolization in the economy is uh, strictly banned, despite the ongoing war and embargo, which limits the region's economic capabilities. Uh, there's an anti-capitalist philosophy at play where uh, both the autonomous administration and other institutions actively encourage people to expand their economic substancy, economic sort of autonomy, and cooperatives are encouraged for people to, as a way to ensure people's economic autonomy. Uh, Now I'll move on and talk in a little more detail before my time runs out in 3 minutes, I believe, about the kind of, about, I'll talk briefly about a couple characteristics of the cooperative movement that has been taking place in Rojava. To briefly introduce, there are between 2 and 300 cooperatives that operate across the region, um, uh, producing in different areas, ranging from agriculture to husbandry to food items to cushions to electric generators. Unfortunately, cooperatives make up around 1 to 2% of the total economic consumption in production and consumption in the region. But this network is notable for certain aspects. First, it's not under the attack of the autonomous administration. On the contrary, the autonomous administration supports the expansion of this cooperative movement and cooperative model by establishing cooperative centers in each city and region. This is the building of the Coop Center that I visited in Kamışlı, which is in charge of supporting the cooperatives that are existing or established in and around Kamışlı. All cooperatives that are formed contribute 5% of their annual income to the center, which is then channeled to fund the starting up of new cooperatives. So there's a network of cooperatives where cooperatives aren't disconnected from one another in the entire Rojava region, which, by the way, I forgot to mention. The entire North and East Syria region is a little larger than Belgium, and hosts about 5 to 6 million people. So it's not a small area that we're talking about. And these cooperative centers exist in numerous locations across the region, which help provide a decentralized yet well-connected and well-organized network of cooperatives, which help fund one another and which are in communication with one another. Another important component of the cooperative movement in Rojava is that it is tied to local councils and assemblies. There are more than 4,000 assemblies that operate at the neighborhood, district, city, and region levels. These assemblies are where everyday citizens come together to make decisions about different aspects of their life. They represent the sort of decentralized, direct, democratic models, institutions. And as you see, this is a photo that I took from a generator cooperative. You know, the region has been under the attack of initially ISIS, but later, most importantly, by the Turkish state, and experiences regular electricity cuts. So, generators is an essential need for maintaining life. And this generator cooperative is linked to the Şehit Berces commune. So each cooperative that's established and that exists in the region is institutionally linked to the commune or assembly that is established in. So it's connected with the sort of decentralized, direct democratic political life and institutions. Another aspect of the cooperative movement, I know I'm running out of my time, so I'll quickly wrap up, is that it goes beyond existing the idea of establishing cooperatives or linking them with local communes. There's also autonomous communes that exist throughout the region. One such example is Jinwar. The photo that you see is from the entrance of Jinwar village, which is maintained and run by women and the children that live there. And Jinwar also has its own cooperative, making, producing food items, vegetables, fruits, uh, you know, husbandry, different animals are raised there. So the idea is to expand cooperatives just beyond the, specific cooperatives that are established by the citizens, but also make it as a, you know, also the economic foundation of communes and other autonomous structures in the region. To briefly, this is a photo that I took from a women's agricultural co-op in Rimelan. I love this photo because it symbolizes the two main sources of income in the entire north and east Syria. About a little more than half of north and east Syria and autonomous administration's revenue come from oil production, which you can see symbolized by the oil rigs in the background. And about 20 to 30% of the autonomous administration's income comes from agriculture, particularly wheat and barley. But over the past 13, 14 years, the autonomous administration and the cooperatives there have been trying to diversify the scope of agricultural production in the region. This is a photo from the same co-op where production is all year round, maintained through um, greenhouses. This is a photo that I took from a chickens cooperative in Haseke. 30 families run and maintain this cooperative. Almost all of the cooperatives that I was able to visit in 2019 are worker co-ops owned by the members. The profits are shared. There's very little waged labor. Yes, it exists, but it's very minimal. In some co-ops, one detail I noticed that wage labor is much less common in women's co-ops than compared to mixed gender co-ops. Almost exclusively all of the cooperatives that I visited that practiced wage labor also happen to be mixed gender, where men tend to dominate, and almost all of the women's co-ops I visited were worker owned. This is from a husbandry co-op that I visited in Kobani. This is from a women's cooperative in Tirbespi that makes cushions. And I know I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna wrap up quickly. This is from a mixed gender textile cooperative that I visited in Haseke. And yeah, let me finally wrap up with this one last slide. This is from my visit to a woman-owned co-op shop it, in uh, Rimelan. its name sort of symbolizes, represents the changes that have been going on in the region, particularly when it comes to gender relations. It's solely maintained, owned, and maintained by women in the region, and its name is New Dam, New Time. And the women owners that I interviewed said they wanted to name the co-op New Dam to reflect women's advancements in the region and sort of that it's a new time with women no longer being pushed aside when it comes to economic, political, even militaristic participation. Sorry for running over time. I will stop sharing my presentation right now and uh, introduce our next speaker, Esther West. Hi, Esther. Esther is a longtime cooperator and researcher, also a loan officer at the Shared Capital and a worker owner of the Ajami Group. Esther will be giving us a brief overview of the cooperative movement in the USA and offer us her historical contextual analysis. Hi, Esther.
Hi, nice to see you. Thank you for the introduction, or thank you for the introduction, but also sharing about co-ops and Rojava. And I feel very thankful to be here with everyone today. Thank you. Um, let's see here. I did not create a PowerPoint. I'm sorry. So what I'm going to recommend is if you have a little photo of your co-op, maybe drop it in the chat because I think that'd be cool to see each other's co-ops, Or
I
if you
can
have like,
also
yeah.
share some photos
Oh, yeah.
on my screen too while you're talking, but go
That'd
for it.
be that'd be awesome. Thank you so much. Um, yeah. So I'm going to share some things, and it's not going to be the whole picture, but it'll be part of the picture and my own understanding and some of my takeaways from some of my thoughts about things and our movement in the U.S. today. Okay.
Sorry, Esther. Also, just remember to
Yeah.
speak slowly.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Um, excellent. So, I do want to note that it feels heavy to speak about this, to speak about some things when some of us are literally dealing with war. And at the same time, this is a way to build relationships and better understand and support each other. We have this one life and we aren't all in it to make money, you know, just to make money because, we're here working together. And I think even this conversation reflects that. And there's power in that. We care about each other through our work and solidarity efforts. Myself, I'm mixed Chicana and grown up around many types of people who I care about. And I've seen personally how systems are for or against people. And I've been raised that we're all in this together. I want to build up our voices, our own communities, and it's a big deal to be able to dream together, big together, even in the face of pain, and to grow our hope through our collective actions towards liberation. Many of us have been in this work for years, if not our lifetime, and even through the pain points and challenges, this is something I believe in and as an expression of who I and often we want to be. So just a little personal context. Um, so I want to situate worker co-ops in the US in a little bit of the US context, okay? So, and just to start, there is an increasing but still somewhat young-ish support, political support for worker co-ops in particular, particularly when it comes to the implementation of new policies, like through the Small Business Association, etc. But I want to go farther back and give even more context. So historically, as early as like the 1900s, the Red Scare, and then later McCarthyism targeted co-ops and people involved in liberatory practices in the name of being anti-communist. So this fear, decrease and violence towards people decreased interest. So there used to be a little bit more openness about some of these things. And then, among other things, just some highlights. Reaganism exacerbated social and racial injustices in the 80s, and then neoliberalistic policies in the 80s and 90s shifted the global economy away from local production towards cheap, unjust labor outside the country, and ultimately creating immigration towards the US where, sadly, a lot of immigrants face racism still. US workers are in a situation where they often face structural violence through our country's white supremacy, sexism, police and gun violence, anti-LGBTQI plus climate justice issues, expensive healthcare, housing, childcare, living expenses, generally just increasing. The corporate dominance in the market is promoting a lot of these injustices. And there are several fronts to fight that are often insidious and like hard to kind of pinpoint or like be like, okay, if we have this one, it's going to solve everything. It's a lot of fronts. Rooted in the US context of constant corporate battles trying to dismantle workers' rights, are imprisonment, guns, police violence. Did you know that 1 in 41 Black adults in the US are incarcerated in state prisons? The US has 4% of the world's population, but 16% of the world's prison population. So these are impacting workers in this country, and people in this country. So you can see how very important co-ops can be and very often are for people in the US as an alternative to build up our communities and meet our needs and build up what we need as people. There's not great data on this, but I'd estimate based on a few different estimates that there are very roughly about 50,000 co-ops of any type in the US. So that's more than just worker co-ops. And there, but with worker co-ops, specifically worker co-ops, we're the smallest group, and there are about 600 of us or more. We're the most diverse, and I would argue oftentimes the most explicitly liberatory focus of the member types of co-ops. It depends on the group, obviously, the co-op and the individuals even, but just as a general trend, since we're talking about liberation here, US worker co-ops have increased dramatically in number in the last roughly 15 years, and then about the last 5 to 10 years. Some reasons include the US FWC and other cooperative associations providing incredible support and connection, increased support through worker co-op educators and funding for them, increased political advocacy, conversion of businesses to worker co-ops, and word getting out, particularly since Occupy Wall Street in 2008, that co-ops are a valuable tool to meet worker and community needs. Many communities act in cooperative and autonomy building ways, but are not legally formally co-ops too. I think that's really important to recognize, as a movement, that there are lots of groups doing very related, grounded work. Co-ops nearly always have a local community focus and often some ties to other co-ops, but there can be major political differences based on the membership types, as I mentioned, like worker co-ops tend to be more social justice focused. And then there's some collaboration on the ground through regional associations or national associations, like through the USFWC. I think that compared to some other countries, we could utilize the secondary co-op model and ecosystem federation model more than we do compared to what I see in some other countries. For example, one example is credit unions just often are not familiar with worker co-ops and how to meet their needs. So that's just like an example, right? So that's an opportunity to connect better. Or maybe do supply chain development co-op to co-op through associations a little bit more. And at the same time, there are many local associations doing just that work, like in New York, Madison, Wisconsin, or Milwaukee, where I live. And particularly the USFWC here is a major force for people to support each other through connections, peer support, learning, creating spaces to converge, and more. There
Almost
are
done on time. Just
almost done. Okay, sweet, thank you. So national level federations and institutions pushing for policy include like National Cooperative Business Association. Historically, the national level has been dominated by very large agricultural electric co-ops whose priority is to meet the sole need of their members. And it's a big deal that Esteban from the Federation is chair of the board of the National Cooperative Business Association. It's a big deal from a worker co-op perspective, I think. Common challenges are around like getting capital, supportive environments. Some strengths are the ability to navigate changes and be dynamic and the diversity of people. I think it's important to ask if there's a rising level of professionalization and like nonprofits doing co-op development. We want to ask, is professionalization happening in the movement a strength or a threat to the autonomy of us as a movement? What does it mean for our movement to build power from the grassroots versus relying on grant funding and nonprofits? Just having space like this to connect and even ask these questions is very powerful. Like the answers to asking how to build liberatory communities versus asking how to increase the number of co-ops gets a little bit different answers. So those are just some thoughts, a little overview. Appreciate your listening to my thoughts, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Esther. I didn't mean to rush you. We're a little behind on our schedule, but I want to give everyone plenty of time to unpack these ideas. Next, I believe we will hear from Mohammed Sabri. If you're ready, Mohammed. Mohammed will be speaking in Arabic, I believe.
مرحبا للجميع ونتمنى
Welcome to everyone.
هذا الحوار
Who this
لصالح المجتمع لصالح
talk is a representation of the aspiration of society.
العالم أكمل. بداية
To begin with,
قد
to
تطورت بشكل
societies,
بعد أن كانت تتماشى بالبساطة
um,
والنظم البيئية المحيطة بها حيث كانت الطبيعة والفرد هل تسمعوني الآن؟ مرحبا للجميع.
so
بداية
to begin with, thank you to everyone.
هذا الحوار لصالح جميع المجتمعات.
I hope that this talk is to the reconciliation of communities everywhere.
إن المجتمعات قد تطورت بشكل كبير
There are developments in
بعد
society
أن كانت تتماشى
that
بالنظم البيئية المحيطة بها
that are related to
حيث
different
كان
aspects,
الفرد
including the environment,
والمجتمع
and
والطبيعة تشكل نظام متكامل متناغم.
that take place on an organizational level
ونتيجة للتطور تشكلت أنظمة
that represent
التي ألحقت الضرر
principle of organization
والفرد.
and society.
باكور رجلاتي سوري أو تشتكوا دكتور جوتي أم جيان دكن راستون يعني.
What my colleague just mentioned actually that what our friend doctor mentioned, this is what we are practicing and experiencing in Rojava, and during his visit we also met him. In Rojava we have technical problems, mostly it's the electricity and the internet connection is very poor, but that's why we are facing some difficulties.
أو كاري أبوري ينجي كوبراتيف يكو دكتور أمر بحثي
Cooperatives and also the economic activities that Dr. Emre mentioned, they are very general picture of the economy in Rojava.
أما إما أم وقت تفجرا جن
But we,
الرجعة
as
نعمل
women's
كونغرس
movement,
ناسكرن
that we are organized under the name of Congress Sitar, Women's Congress,
أف كونغرس تارجي قال لك قوميتي هنا
and Congress Sitar is
قوميتا
organized
تندرستي
different
قوميتا
committees, for
روفي
example, health, education,
قوميتا تندرستي قوميتا باراستن
for example, self-defense, education, and also health committees.
قوميتا أبوريجي قوميتا كسركايا جبا
And
قوميتي
among those
كونغرس تار
committees, we also have a specific committee for economy, which is organized under the Congress Star, specifically related to women.
أركيفي قوميتيجي
And this
كوبراتيفي
committee
خسر
is
يعني تايبت بوجنا
responsible for creating autonomous cooperatives specifically for women.
جبرتشي كوبراتيفي خسر جبوجنا
Why do we need
جبر
autonomous
جن دوري
cooperatives for
أبوريكتو
women?
بري
Because
شورشي
until before the
دهما
revolution, the
تيوان
women were alienated, disconnected, detached from the economy.
يعني ذهنيتها ذكوري زي البيش
The
وذهنيتها
mentality, there was a
الدولة
traditional feudal mentality was dominant here, as well as the mentality brought by the Syrian regime, which didn't allow the woman to take part in economic life.
أما بخيرا شورشي
But after the
جن
revolution, the
الرجعة
women in
رولك
Rojava
السركة
region, they they
رولك السركة اللي
they are
شورشي
playing
دا
they are
وجدي خود
playing a
بعدين
very
دبلوماسي
significant leading
وعسكري
role
وسياسي دقرت
in revolution in Rojava in terms of military, economy, administration, and politics.
جبر فيكي جماعتي ويبوجي بقري
Therefore,
رولك
the
رولا
woman
خوا
also had the
أبوريكا جي
right
دبيزي
to become a part of the economic life and to become productive.
جبركو أبوريا جني خورت بي تقاري قالك
It is
بسكريكي
important
خوا
for women
ترسر
to
بكي
have a strong economy in order to be able to find solutions for their problems that they face every day in the society.
يعني دما أبوريا وخورت بي
When the women have a strong
كسايتاوي
economy, they have this
إراداوي
self-confidence, they have
قالك
a strong
خوداوي
personality, and they have a strong will because they have the means.
واحتياجي هبوكو أبوريا جنا هبي چماني
And it was
جبر
also
سالتاوي
necessary.
يعني
Why?
شري ورابيا
Because the
دا
last 12 years we are facing war every day. We had a destroyed economy because of the war.
قالك شهادات شيبون
And we
قالك
have so
كوچبري
many
شيبون هاوري
friends, comrades
روجاواي
have
كردستاني
fallen. There were
بكاري
so many displaced people. They had to flee. And then when you look at the entire region in Rojava and in Syria,
يعني قالك معلبات هنا زلام تيدا نينن جن
and
مجبورة
currently there are
كار
so many
بكي
families that they don't
أبورياوي
even
هبي جبول معلبات
have
تي
one
زاروكا
male
خوديدا
member
بكاري
left. They are all
واحتياجي وي كسينة
women-only
هبي
families. They because they lost their men, their sons at the war. So the women had to take over and then start the economy in order to survive.
أمجي أموك أبوريا كونغراستار أموك
And we as Congress start a committee for it's called Arbori, it's called the economy, and we are also organizing women. We are reaching out to women and trying to organize them in order to start their business or become member of the cooperatives.
سيستما كوبراتيفا جيل روجافا سيستما كنوبو يعني وك تجربة بو.
And cooperative system was also unknown in the region. It was introduced after the revolution, so it was the people were not very familiar with it.
ما دست بیکاری تقریبا 2014 ما دست بیکاری کرد
We started the cooperatives in 2014, and our entire economy is based on the cooperatives, and they are very open to everyone from the society, that everyone can become a member and a part of the cooperatives.
يعني ام ابوريكا جواكي دنا مشاندن چمانه جواكي جبر
It is
همو
called a
بشي
social economy. We call it social because we don't it welcomes everyone, every part of the society, regardless of their ethnicities, religion, or cultural background.
وعدالت جد بیکاری ده هيا جبر هر کس وکهف کدید ده و
And
هر
it's
کس
also
وکهف
based on justice. Everybody is working, everybody is trying hard, and at the end, everybody is getting paid equally. There is no discrimination, there is no privileges for anyone, the equal work and equal payment, equal wages.
ام تکارن بیجن حتی روژا ایرو نزی 4000 جن
So
جهی
far,
خورد
we can say there are 4,000 women members of the cooperatives in the entire region.
کوپراتیفی مجی گلک جوری و هنا جمعیه چاندنیه هنا
We have different kinds of cooperatives, from agriculture to bakery or producing food or clothing and whatsoever.
يعني جن بخوا كومين جنيه هر كومينة كي تين بروجا خوش مرتينن بيجن ام تخوازن بيكاري بكن يعني
And we
احتياجي
have women communes, and they have their projects. They want to start a project. They come to us as a committee. We try to help them. We try to find some means, and eventually we support them by in creating their own cooperatives.
جمعية جي جوري احتياجي جواكي يعني هر تاخك هر جندك هر باجارك احتياجي بشهايا ام تخوازن
And also it's important
وي جمعية وي كوبراتيف يعني وي بروجي
and the necessity or the need of the people are also a priority when we decide about the cooperatives. Whatever was needed in a region, in a neighborhood, then we support a certain cooperative in order to respond, be an answer to the needs of the people.
كوبراتيف خو بريفد بي يعني ام
And the
بريارة فرز
cooperatives are autonomous. They have their own administration. They are not under us. We are not allowed to give them any orders or intervene in their internal affairs because they make their own decisions.
اما ام بفرا اري كارن يعني تاني نا انه اوجن كار بكي وبراقة زنج بكي ام تخوازن كسايتاوي جي خورت ببي
But we are also always in contact and we are supporting each other. It's not only about making money. Of course, they will work, they will make money, but they will also have very strong personalities by working in the cooperative. So they are autonomous, but we are well connected and we are kind of playing the role of coordination and between different cooperatives.
يعني ام تخوازن هيزا جني قرط ببيت حمو ملادا آبوريدا فكري ذهني إيديولوجي.
Our main goal is the empowerment of women in terms of personality, politics, economy, or in the society. Everything is serving for very strong will women, creating a strong and free woman.
يعني راستي ام مجابك باش مع آفيتيا
And
يعني
indeed, we
برنامج
took the
اقتصادي
very good
اقتصاد ام
first
تماما
steps, but we don't claim that we are 100% successful, but we can say we did a great start and it's growing day by day.
ريش سر ولاطي هنا.
We also face difficulties because we are currently under attack by the Turkey and war, and it makes also our work difficult. Is she out of time?
Yes, it would be good if Mohammed is here to give.
حصار جسر منطقي هيا عقوبات اقتصادي أفجي قلك باندوري الكارمة كي.
And the region is currently under an embargo. We cannot reach out the materials that we need from outside. So it also makes our production very primitive, also very limited.
Mohammed, are you here? Are you able to continue speaking?
أما يعني هي البرخ الدنيا يعني تاكوشين دكن.
But it's a struggle and we will keep struggling.
مرحبا للجميع.
Welcome to everyone.
إن جميع الثورات تحتاج لنظام اقتصادي.
That the community as a whole needs to undertake an economic revolution
للمحافظة على مكتسبات الثورة.
that we need to preserve a revolutionary economy.
طبعا الإدارة الذاتية ومناطق شمال شرق سوريا.
Of course, the autonomous administration of North and East Syria
عنده رؤية اقتصادية كومينالية.
we have a communal economic program.
طبعا هذا النظام الاقتصادي نظام اقتصادي اجتماعي ثقافي.
This economic program of the autonomous administration is economic and social.
طبعا عندما نرجع إلى الوراء قليلا
we look to the past a little bit.
كانت الدولة أو نظام الأسد البعثي كان مسيطر على مكتسبات المجتمع كاملة.
That the Assad regime was in control of the economic and social activity of the country entirely.
الرؤية يجب نقوم الآن في الإدارة الذاتية.
The importance that now the autonomous administration
العمل على النظام الاقتصادي المجتمعي.
That the autonomous administration undertakes a program of communal economy.
طبعا تعتمد النظام الاقتصادي المجتمعي على 3 ركائز أساسية.
Of course, the communal economy depends on certain important factors.
هو الكومين والمجالس.
That they are the council and the commune.
والتعاونيات الكوبراتيفات.
And the cooperatives.
والأكاديميات.
And the academies.
طبعا الأكاديميات له دور كبير في توعية المجتمع وتثقيف المجتمع إرجاع المجتمع إلى الجوهر الحقيقي للإنسان.
And the academy has an important role to play in terms of the development of society, the education of a society, and in terms of realizing its aspirations.
التعاونيات، يعني نحسن نعرف التعاونيات هو
We want
تنظيم مجتمعي
the basis of the
بشكل ذاتي على أساس العمل المشترك لتلبية الاحتياجات الأساسية الاقتصادية والاجتماعية والثقافية.
in order to respond to the fundamental economic, political, economic, social, communal needs of society. This is the basis of building a communal economy.
للمشاركين فيها، ويتم تنظيم التعاونيات بشكل ديمقراطي
That those who take part in these cooperatives need to do so in a democratic way.
وتتم مراقبة ومتابعة العمل من قبل المشاركين فيها والمجتمع.
And this needs to take place on the level of those who participated and also on the level of the society in general.
التعاونيات ليست فقط عمل اقتصادي،
The cooperative is not just economic activity.
بل هي تنظيم لجميع المقومات المجتمع الاقتصادي والاجتماعي والثقافي.
It is the organization of every element of society, culturally, communally, and economically.
والتعاونيات ليست خطة أو مشروع جديد،
And it is not a new project.
بل هي أسلوب للبقاء، وهي حقيقة المجتمع الإنساني
It is a representation of the true basis of human society.
وبدونها لا يستطيع المجتمع البقاء.
And without reference to the آسف ما سمعتك مظبوط.
بل هي أسلوب للبقاء، وهي حقيقة المجتمع الإنساني
It is a representation of the truth of human society.
وبدونها لا يستطيع المجتمع البقاء.
And it represents going beyond the current limitations.
ونحن في مناطق الإدارة الذاتية لشمال وشرق سوريا لدينا استراتيجية وخططنا التي نعمل عليها لتوسيع عمل التعاونيات.
And we, the Autonomous Administration of Northern Syria, have a program for developing this.
واعتمادها كسياسة اقتصادية واجتماعية وثقافية.
And it depends on a policy that is economic and social and communal.
طبعا سندخل في الأسس التعاونية.
Of course, we need to enter into the basis of cooperation.
أولا تتخذ التعاونية مبدأ الاقتصاد الكومينالي أساسا له.
Of course, we need to enter. Is it just the economic elements of cooperation? No.
ثانيا تعتمد على المشاركة بين المرأة والرجل.
It is also based on the cooperation between man and woman
لتلبية الحاجات الأساسية للمجتمع من نشاطات اقتصادية واجتماعية وثقافية.
in order to develop this in society in terms of its economic, cultural, and social activity in general.
تنظم التعاونيات إدارتها على مبدأ الديمقراطية والتشاركية العمل بشكل شفاف مع جميع الأعضاء.
In order to provide this sort of development to all of society's members.
تتخذ المبدأ حماية البيئة أساسا لعمله.
And that is based on the elements that were previously mentioned.
إتاحة المجال للمرأة من أجل الانضمام بشكل فعال وواضح لأعمال الإدارة.
And it is based on the participation of the woman in these projects.
منح الفرصة للأعضاء لخوض تجربة الإدارة.
آسف ما سمعتك مظبوط.
منح الفرصة للأعضاء لخوض تجربة الإدارة، يعني الفرد الموجود ضمن التعاونيات يعني مشان يطور من حاله يتحول لإدارة كمان،
أيوة.
يعني خوض تجربة الإدارة.
The economic participation of people in these communes is also a way of building administrative capacity.
أن تكون التعاونيات وحدات إنتاجية مؤثرة يكون فيها العضو مركزا للقرار.
That these members of these cooperatives are the center of decision.
تنمية الروح المسؤولية لدى الأعضاء ليكونوا نشيطين وفعالين تجاه التعاونيات والحياة الكومينالي.
That the members of these cooperatives become the center of a self-determined communal life.
أهداف التعاونيات
The goals of cooperation
تطوير العمليات الإنتاجية مهما كان شكلها.
is آسف ما سمعتك الجودة مو عالية.
تطوير العمليات الإنتاجية مهما كان شكلها.
أيوة. Is the development of based on the needs of society in general.
اعتماد على التعاونيات كمؤسسات اجتماعية على تأمين مستلزمات الإنتاج.
Based on securing those needs.
خلق نشاط اقتصادي محلي وذلك بالاعتماد على الموارد الطبيعية.
In terms of recognizing those economic activities in a natural way.
تأمين فرص للقضاء على البطالة في المجتمع.
And that this is a representation of the heroism of society.
بناء سلسلة مترابطة من المنتج إلى المستهلك عبر الربط بين التعاونيات بمختلف اختصاصاتها.
And that this is a way of building like a communal consumption.
تحرير الساحة الاقتصادية من المظاهر الاحتكار والاستغلال.
It's a way of moving from monopoly to independence.
قيام مشاريع اقتصادية تضمن مشاركة كافة فئات المجتمع.
It's based on the participation of all elements of society.
طبعا التعاونيات في الإدارة الذاتية الديمقراطية تنظم نفسها ضمن المجالس المقاطعات وتسير أعمالها مع الكومينات ومجالس الشعب.
Of course, the autonomous administration bases building these cooperatives on the basis of the councils that exist in the cantons.
وتحافظ على خصوصيتها واستقلالها وتكون منفتحة على التغيير والتطوير.
And it works to preserve the independence of these communes or of these cantons.
طبعا الإدارة الذاتية في العام المنصرم أعطت من ميزانية الإدارة الذاتية 10% لعمل الاقتصاد المجتمعي والتعاونيات.
And the autonomous generation gives 10% of its budget to these sort of operations.
طبعا في عنا أمثلة
Sorry to
كثيرة عن
interrupt.
التعاونية.
Please excuse my interruption, Muhammad. I just want to make sure that we have time for some questions and discussion before people have to go.
الرفيقة بس هي تريد تقول إنه بدنا وقت فترة شوي من شان الأسئلة.
So
شلون؟
if you don't mind, we'll ask you to give a final thought.
تمام، يعني بدنا يعني فكرة أخيرة من شان التخليص.
الفكرة الأخيرة يعني دائما تعمل الإدارة الذاتية لبناء التعاونيات في مناطق شمال وشرق سوريا. طبعا حسب الميثاق العقد الاجتماعي الأخير كمان. التعاونيات هي أساس الاقتصاد في مناطق الإدارة الذاتية.
Um, of course, the program of the autonomous administration is based on like the economic program of the autonomous administration is based on these sort of this kind of communal economic organization.
طبعا الاقتصاد المجتمعي أو التعاونيات يجب أن يكون تحرير من الأفكار الرأسمالية، يعني وتخليص المجتمع من الفكر الرأسمالي وتحويله إلى فكر ديمقراطي تعددي وإدارة المجتمع نفسه بنفسه.
Mhm. And the basis of this economic activity and the cooperatives is to remove the mentality of capitalism, to fight the capitalist organization, and to build a different alternative.
هذا هو باختصار، يعني المجال غير كافي للحديث عن التعاونيات في مناطق شمال شرق سوريا، الوقت غير كافي.
Of course, the time is not sufficient to yet complete all of these goals.
So to start us with questions, I'm going to ask Chris to start things off.
Thanks. Thanks. My question is to Gula. What is an important lesson that was difficult for your movement to learn?
Step in for the question. I'm afraid neither Gule nor Haval Mohammed are able to respond right now. I ask this question in my interviews often, Chris, when I was there in 2019, and I guess I can, for the Rojava context, what people responded to me the most were 3 points, two more material, one more abstract. The two biggest obstacles people kept bringing up were the ongoing war and embargo. You know, the ongoing war making life more precarious and people hesitating to invest, their time and energy in cooperatives because of either the fear of Assad's return to the region or some greater instability, the chances of a greater instability hitting, but also the embargo, the isolation, making sort of lots of the materials difficult to reach. And they mentioned that a lot, especially when people started talking about how they would like to use more solar panels and they couldn't bring them in because of the embargo, or different ways of trying to expand their cooperative activities but not being able to do so because of material limitations imposed by the embargo. But the more abstract part of the answer would be people always kept mentioning this kind of mentality that they had to combat, especially in co-op centers, but also in some cooperatives within cooperatives themselves. Some people kept bringing up this sort of mentality. They referred to it by different names in different settings. Different people use different names, either profiteer mentality or pre-revolution mentality or modernist mentality, capitalist mentality. But there were lots of accounts. Some cooperatives got sort of deactive and got dissolved in a year or two because people saw it as merely some sort of like area to invest. I chip in some money, I'm part of the sort of cooperative, and without really doing much work, I expect some sort of return on a regular basis. So I guess not really getting the bottom of the cooperative spirit, which is sharing the work and the labor and the sort of the whole process and not just the rewards. So I guess in an abstract way, the internalization of the cooperative spirit could be one of the biggest abstract obstacles in my attempt to answer your question.
Thank you.
I think due to time and difficulties with the tech logistics of the interpreting, we might have to end there for now. And I apologize to everyone whose wonderful questions are in the chat. We are saving those. And we'll see if there's a way we can follow up from this conversation to continue this exchange of ideas and hopefully expand on some of the things that people are raising as questions and comments. Before we go, I'm going to share my screen again and give you lots of links in the chat as well for how to stay connected. Hopefully, as our speakers mentioned, we're still at the beginning of something, many of us. And hopefully this conversation is also the beginning of more connection between all of us in the cooperative movement doing, responding to circumstances in our own parts of the world. So let me share some of that with you. Here are some of the many ways you could stay connected to the Emergency Committee for Rojava, the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives, and hopefully you can follow us, join our newsletters so that we're able to see you again. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for holding this.
Thanks
Thank
again
you.
to our speakers, to our interpreters, and all of you. I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, take care.
Have a good day, everyone.
You too, take care.